Welcome back. Today I'm going to show you and tell you about the new garage shelves that I built. These are just shelves for holding the tools that I've accumulated over the previous year. But before I do, based on some recent comments I've seen on my channel, I feel the need to inform my viewers that I'm not a professional woodworker, I'm not a carpenter or anything like that. I'm not here to give you advice. I'm just a homeowner that sometimes does DIY projects in my garage, and this is mainly to document for my family and friends what I've been doing. If you get something out of this, that's great. Okay, back to the topic. In some of my previous videos, I showed how I was getting the long-handled tools off that one section of wall in my garage, and I moved them all into one rack on the other side. And I think I mentioned that I intended to use that space for a set of shelves for my tools. Years ago, I built some big garage shelves that's mainly for storage, but I've also been using them for just random things, just put in there, sometimes tools, sometimes fasteners. But the whole point of my last several projects has been to reorganize the garage, and I wanted all the tools to be, or most of the tools, the ones that I use regularly for woodworking, to be in one place. I think I mentioned recently that I had bought one of those giant sheets of plywood that was 4 feet wide by 8 feet long, and I had the store cut them in half for me. And I used some of that for one of my previous projects, but here I'm on the floor of my garage cutting those boards into shelves. This is the first time that I tried something like this, using 2x4s to prop them up off the floor so I don't, ruin the saw blade or my garage floor. But it was mainly so I would have space to cut such large pieces of wood. But anyway, I made my measurements, I cut the wood. And I came up with 4 shelves. The next thing that I did was I took the 2x4s that I was going to use for posts to hold the front of the shelves, and I cut some notches in them. The back of each shelf would be either resting on a rail that I screwed into the studs in the garage wall, or in a couple of places just blocks that I screwed into the studs on the garage wall. But the front of the shelves would be supported by these posts, and instead of just attaching them to the posts, attaching the shelves to the posts, I decided to cut notches into the posts, which I'm doing here. The notches that I've already cut, I'm testing with a piece of the 3/4 inch plywood to make sure that they fit snugly into the notches. And you can see that I am cutting a new notch here. I had the 2 corner posts clamped side by side so I could cut notches in both of them at the same time. And then I used a chisel to knock out some of the waste. And then cut the ends of the boards off because they were too long for what I needed. I just needed about 6 feet in height. Here are all the pieces that I have cut, including the rails, the posts, and the little blocks that I mentioned that I would attach to the studs on the wall. The 2 corner posts of the shelves are going to be identical, and then there is a middle post, which I didn't know if I would need that with a 4-foot length of plywood, but just in case, I didn't want the front center of the shelves to sag under weight, so I wanted to have a little bit of support there. And this is the space in the corner where those shelves will be. You can see where I had the hooks attached to the wall for those brooms and shovels and whatnot. And I was going to try to use those same spots if possible to attach. And I did use those spots to mark where the studs were, since I knew that those hooks in the past were attached to the studs. And here is the shelving unit almost done. You can see what I was talking about with the rails that are attached to the wall that the backs of the shelves are resting on. And that also allows me to attach the back rail to the front posts, where the notches are holding up the shelves. And here I do not have the center front post attached yet. I did attach that later, and I possibly overbuilt these, but they are definitely going to hold anything I put on them. The 3/4 inch plywood is incredibly strong, and with the back rails attached to the studs and attached securely to the front posts, and the shelves put in those notches on the 2x4s, I am fully confident that this set of shelves will hold any tools that I place on them. Now here down at the bottom of the 1 corner post, I must have mismeasured. I knew that the garage floor sloped off very slightly, so I made sure and measured before I started this. I got a level, and I had a board there with a level and shimming up the one end of it until the level was level, so I would know exactly how much longer that the right corner post needed to be than the left corner post, so that it would rest on the floor and the shelves would still be level. However, I must have mismeasured or miscut because you can see where my marks are. I left that extra space below the 6-foot mark, but I still had to put a shim under there in order to get the shelves level. Here you can see a little makeshift connector that I've put just to make sure that the post and the shelf are attached to each other and that the post can't be kicked out or something like that. But again, it was probably a little extra, a little bit more than I needed. But anyway, I'm happy with the shelves. They hold all the tools that I need them to, all the regular tools that I use in woodworking projects, and it's in the corner of my garage where I have decided this is where I'm going to do that type of work. As you might have seen, there next to them is where I had built those clamp racks from a previous video. My work table is nearby, and I've reorganized the garage just enough where this area is clear. It's pretty easy for me to do what I need to do right there. Let me know what you think in the comments, and thank you for spending your time here. I'll see you in the next one.